Welcome to Café con Leche. This is DRCC Youth Podcast. My name is Maggie Angel. I am the Community Engagement and Communications person here at DRCC. With me, you do see I have a special guest the first time around. We do have Jamie, who is our Superfund manager in the house today. So do you want to say hi, Jamie?
Hi everyone, my name is Jamie Hearn. I use she, her pronouns, and I work on climate policy here at DRCC. And
Awesome.
This is Donkus, our office pet.
Hi, Donkus. Hope you guys are doing well. We know it's the end of the year, so we did decide to do this podcast to inform community and just to stay connected with y'all and make sure you're part of DRCC as well. We might not be looking at you all the time, and I'm just saying this because I tend to look around, but we are going to just get to know Jamie and learn a little bit more about, Superfund and what that means and why that's interesting to Jamie in the first place. So come on and let's talk to Jamie. All right, Jamie, you told us your name already. We're not going to make you repeat your whole name, but tell us a little more about what you do at DRCC.
So I do any work that's related to Superfund cleanup. So that means, reviewing any documents that come out of the cleanup for both the Harbor Island Superfund site and the Lower Duwamish Waterway. I also do a lot of work with source control, which is sort of the upland cleanup around the river. And so we do a lot of advocacy around just making sure that the cleanups are as health protective as possible and that community members are informed and up to date about cleanup progress.
Jamie's job is really important, and we could break that down a little bit just so you guys understand completely where Jamie is at. So you mentioned Superfund, Jamie. Do you want to explain what that is?
Yeah, so a Superfund site is basically a site that is so heavily contaminated that the federal government gives it a special designation, which means it has to go through a certain type of cleanup. So the Duwamish River has 2 Superfund sites, even though it is one river, and it just means that the river is essentially one of the most polluted sites in the country.
That's really interesting because I've lived in South Park for a really long time. Maybe more than 20 years now, and for half of those years I had no idea this river ever existed. So for those of you that are watching or listening to this podcast, here's your homework assignment. Take a look around your neighborhood, do some research, see if there's any water bodies around you, and look into what's going into this river or water body and how is it affecting your health. Because one of the important things here about the Superfund is that it's not just about the wildlife. It's also about the human health and the effects this Superfund is having in the community. So Jamie, do you want to mention a couple of those things? I know sometimes people get scared when we mention some of the contaminants of the river, but it's good to know.
Yeah, so some of the contaminants that we're especially concerned about are dioxins, furans, heavy metals, PCBs, which stands for polychlorinated biphenyls, which is a whole sort of category of chemicals. And a lot of people are sometimes nervous to interact with the river because it is a Superfund site, but the part of the river that is really highly contaminated is the mud at the bottom of the river. So the water
unless you're really digging,
right?
But I mean, I'm not sure if you know this, but how deep is the river?
It depends on where you are in the river. Some sections of it are like 20 plus feet deep.
Oh, wow.
So, unless you're really sort of handling the mud or like playing in the mud, of course it depends on where you are in the river. Certain areas are more contaminated, but it's safe to swim in the river, which a lot of people don't actually know, unless it's been 48 hours after a heavy rain. Then we advise folks not to go into the river.
So kind of like how the weather's been lately, really raining a lot. And do you want to explain why that is? For me, it's really interesting, but I want people to listen
Yeah, so the reason that we tell people not to swim in the river after a heavy rain event is because we have sewer systems that are a little bit older, and they aren't really built for the amount of volume of waste and water that goes through them. And so when there's a lot of rain, the system gets overflows basically, and so some of that gets released back into the river so that it doesn't come back up into people's homes, and sewer backups don't happen in people's homes. And so after heavy rains like there has been lately, sewer water goes into the river.
So definitely don't go for a swim right now. What about fishing? I've noticed there's people in the river fishing sometimes. I've heard different things, and I come from a background where my family has always tried to harvest and get what they can to consume. What can you tell us about fishing in the Duwamish River?
Yeah, so the only fish that is on the safer side to eat is salmon. Anything else that comes from the river is not safe to eat. So that means like any shellfish, like clams, crabs, any like rockfish, sole, any other type of fish or crustacean that lives in the river is not safe, because these fish tend to spend their entire life in the river, so they have more exposure to these contaminants. Whereas salmon are migratory, so they spend some of their life in the ocean, which is cleaner, and then they come into the river. That being said, that doesn't mean you can just eat as much salmon as you want. There is
a lot of salmon. Let me say that. I do see a lot of salmon jumping up the river, but maybe
there's a lot
not
of salmon.
Just a certain amount is what you can eat.
Yeah, it depends on the type of salmon. So there's 5 different salmon species in the Duwamish River. We, on our website and our social media, we've posted the fishing advisories before that have been issued by the Washington Department of Health. And so always refer to that if you catch any salmon and are trying to figure out how much of it you can eat. It usually is 1 to 2 servings either a week or a month, depending on the type of salmon.
And usually servings are like the size of your palm.
Size of your palm.
Don't think a serving is like a whole fish.
For
those of you that are interested in like more about fishing, how to consume the fish from the Duwamish River, we could definitely bring a podcast and talk more specifics about it, because there is certain things like the skin, the head, how to cook it, how to clean it, all that kind of stuff, that is really important to know if you're thinking about consuming. And of course, also we do have the topic of what you need to fish in the Duwamish River. It's not as simple as just coming and fishing from the river. There are rules and laws that go behind it, so we could definitely also talk a little bit about that. We are like scattering around today. We are like talking about the Superfund, the river, the history. And this is just an intro. I just want folks to kind of get to know who you are, the work you do, what stands behind Superfund Manager, so they could ask us questions and can engage with us in the future. One of the cool things I also like, and when we do our boat tours, I bring these beautiful maps that were created through a DRCC and other partners, I believe, and it has this map of the river, but it's not like our normal river. It used to be a really squiggly line. Can you give us a little context, not the whole history, but just a little bit about why the river was shaped the way it was, and who it's benefiting? Is it benefiting the community, or who is it?
Yeah, so the shape of the river that we see today is not the original shape. Right now, at least the Superfund site section of the river is about 5 miles, and the original sort of length of the river used to be a little over 12 miles, so that's a significant amount of river and habitat that we've lost. The original curves of the river are really important for habitat and also for like salmon that are coming upriver. It creates a lot more space for them to rest and lay their eggs, and it's just, it was an important part of the entire ecosystem. About 100 years ago, a little more than that, the river was channelized or straightened, And this made it easier for barges and boats to come up into Seattle as the city was industrializing. And so when we think about who the current shape of the river benefits, it definitely benefits, you know, folks who were able to sort of profit off the industrialization of Seattle. So it benefits the city, it benefits the county, it benefits the port, you know, it benefits all of these businesses and industries. But what it means for community members is that, you know, things like houses being built on what once were floodplains, and that makes it difficult sometimes for community members. It means that, you know, tribes don't have the same access to the amount of fish that used to be here because there's just less habitat. You know, it doesn't benefit all of the other plants and animals in this area. So
also access to the river. I think one of the issues I've heard right now is just not having community access to the water and to the river. I think in Southburg we have like 2 parks that we have access, and then Georgian has one, which is sad because all the, you know, front line of the river is industries. All we see, especially if you go on our boat tour, you'll see this, but there's all industries and they're really close to the edge of the water. So that's of a concern to me. How do we engage with industries when it comes to the river wise, not like just for business, but how do we do industries know about the river and its current state of contamination?
Yeah, so the way that the Superfund law is structured, it requires that polluters pay for the cost of cleanup. So, you know, all of these businesses and industries that have some sort of responsibility for the pollution, you know, have varying levels of involvement in the cleanup, and they work with the 4 main responsible parties for the Lower Duwamish, which are Boeing, Port of Seattle, King County, and the City of Seattle. And so those are kind of the 4 main entities, and then they work with the businesses to make sure that cleanup is happening and sort of cost allocation is happening.
Is EPA the one who determines who like these industries are, or do they just voluntarily say, I will step up and also take initiative to work with these responsible parties?
Yeah, it's not, I don't think many of them would volunteer if given the choice.
I mean, who would? It's expensive, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Super expensive, yeah. Ugh. Well, you know, that's always a complicated situation when it comes to money and law, and I'm not saying suing, but, you know, when it comes to just taking accountability of something like the Superfund site, it involves a lot of issues, I'm guessing. But there is a lot of meetings. I have heard of a lot of meetings and a lot of just community gatherings to inform community of what's happening. Do you want to talk a little bit about, you know, comment letters and how people could get involved with the Superfund site?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to get involved. If you're interested in coming and sort of hearing directly from EPA about how cleanup is going and hearing directly from responsible parties, we have a variety of sort of public meetings that are held throughout the year. There's sort of 2 different formats of EPA-led meetings, or EPA kind of involved meetings. There's the roundtable meetings where we break out into caucuses or little groups based on what our interests are pertaining to the river. So there's DRCC has our own caucus. There's a caucus for business owners that are responsible parties, business owners that aren't responsible parties. There's a caucus for fishers, for folks who live by the river. And so we're able to kind of meet based around our different interests, you know, give each other updates, see what our common goals are, and then sort of bring our concerns to the larger group while also getting updates on what's going on. So that's the roundtable, and of course for any public meeting that's being held, DRCC will post this on our social media, our Facebook, our Instagram, and our
anywhere
website.
We can.
Yeah, anywhere we can, just to make sure folks know about that. So that's the first sort of format, and then the second is the stakeholders meetings that we have, and so that one is, those meetings are a little more technical, a little more geared towards folks who are a little more involved in cleanup, but we presented those, and we kind of gear our presentation towards community, and that's always an open space for community members. And so that's kind of a longer format for EPA to share out what work they've been doing. We often also have updates from the Department of Ecology on how they're working on source control. And so those are kind of two public meetings. DRCC often also hosts our own sort of community events or meetings.
Usually before like roundtables,
we'll do like
a breakdown of the agenda to get you and those that are attending prepared for this roundtable meeting. And just to point that out, also we do have interpretation, so if you feel more comfortable in Spanish or in whatever language you speak or have knowledge of, you could definitely get that there.
Yeah, and another way I, encourage folks to get involved in the cleanup is if you have any thoughts about, certain parts of the cleanup or certain sites that are being cleaned up. We have a forum on our website where you can write a little comment. Those are important for me when I'm writing comment letters on these different cleanup plans, to sort of have that community input be incorporated into the things that we write and we submit. And so, that's another really important way to be involved in the process.
I mean, that's really important. There's also other small things you could be doing at home. You could be watching. We actually were part of a different radio series named La Voz de la Justicia, which maybe you have seen or you will see here in our Facebook page as well. And we have a bunch of videos that have more information on the topics we might be touching again. We do like to bring it up again because there's changes, there's updates, and we just want to make sure you're up to date on what's occurring, especially if you live in the Duwamish Valley or not, as a neighbor or also as someone that lives around the Pacific Northwest. Just a reminder, this water body is connected to different areas, and what you do at home can also affect the health and well-being of this community down here in the Duwamish Valley. So just wanted to make that point out. We do have a couple events coming up, Jamie. I'm not sure if you heard of them, but we do have one of them being the toy giveaway that we just announced last night. It's through the Duwamish Valley Youth Course. So if you have any children, any kids at home that would want to come and meet Santa and just have some food and get some goodies, but also get some gifts, we are pre-registering. You must register in order to come. The link is on our Facebook, and we do have beautiful flyers up, so please sign up for that. But we also have more information on in our website and also in the Facebook and Instagram. We have both accounts.